When grief doesn't follow the rules, finding your way after losing a child. I recently had the profound privilege of interviewing Letitia Jackson, a woman whose very existence redefines courage. When tragedy strikes, most retreat. Letitia stepped forward. Her revolutionary work in grief advocacy hasn't just transformed how we understand loss, it has literally saved lives. In communities where silence around grief has been the suffocating norm for generations, Letitia has created oxygen. Her insights form the foundation of what I'm sharing today, wisdom that challenges our cultural silence around grief and offers a pathway forward when the unthinkable happens. The first time someone told me it gets better with time, after a devastating loss, I wanted to scream time, as if grief runs on a predictable schedule, as if there's some invisible clock counting down to the moment when your heart magically mends itself. But that's not how grief works, especially not when you've lost a child. There's no timeline, no five neat stages that you progress through like levels in a video game, no graduation day when you finally get over it. And yet, our society remains stubbornly committed to the myth of orderly grief. We've created this bizarre expectation that mourning should follow a tidy trajectory, like a business plan with quarterly goals and measurable outcomes. It's been 6 months. Aren't you feeling better? You should be moving on by now. God doesn't give you more than you can handle. These platitudes aren't just unhelpful, they're actively harmful. They create an expectation that grief should be efficient, productive, and above all, invisible. This pressure falls particularly hard on Black women who've long carried the impossible burden of the strong Black woman stereotype, expected to endure, persevere, and keep it moving no matter what. But what happens when the pain is too big to contain? When the loss of a child shatters everything you thought you knew about yourself and the world? This is where Letitia Jackson's insights become so vital. Through our conversation, she emphasized that grief isn't something to get over, it's something you learn to carry, and how you carry it matters deeply. Consider Tasha Hunter's story. After losing her son to gun violence in Chicago, Tasha faced not just the crushing weight of her grief, but also the suffocating silence around it. In many Black communities, discussing child loss remains taboo, wrapped in layers of stigma, shame, and spiritual expectations to be strong and trust God's plan. Tasha initially did what many of us do. She suffered in silence. She smiled at church. She went back to work. She tried to be normal for everyone else's comfort. But inside, she was drowning. I remember sitting in my car in the grocery store parking lot, she told Letitia, screaming until my throat was raw. Then I fixed my makeup, walk inside, and nod politely when the cashier asked how my day was going. This disconnect between our internal landscape of grief and the external pressure to appear okay creates a dangerous isolation. It's like being trapped in a burning building while everyone outside insists there's no fire. Tasha's turning point came unexpectedly at a community vigil for victims of violence. There, surrounded by other mothers who had lost children, something cracked open. For the first time, she spoke her truth aloud. I don't know how to live in a world where my son doesn't exist. That vulnerable admission became the first step in her healing journey. It led her to therapy, to support groups, and eventually to founding the Tasha Hunter Foundation, which now connects hundreds of grieving mothers with mental health resources each year. What Tasha discovered, what Letitia Jackson emphasizes in her work. is that grief requires witnesses, not fixers, not advice givers, witnesses. This brings me to the second crucial insight from my conversation with Letitia. Community isn't optional when navigating profound loss, it's essential, but not just any community, the right community. Rachel Cargill understood this when she established the Loveland Foundation's Therapy Fund after losing her younger brother. She recognized that many Black women face significant barriers to accessing culturally competent mental health care during bereavement. The statistics are sobering. Black Americans are 20% more likely to experience serious mental health problems than the general population, yet only about 25% receive the treatment they need, compared to 40% of white Americans. These disparities widen dramatically when it comes to grief support. Rachel's solution was brilliantly direct. Remove the financial barriers by providing free therapy sessions with practitioners who understand the unique intersection of race, gender, and grief. Since 2018, the foundation has funded thousands of therapy sessions, creating spaces where Black women can process their pain without having to explain, justify, or minimize it. In therapy, one participant shared, I didn't have to be strong. I didn't have to protect anyone from my feelings. For 1 hour each week, I could fall apart completely and know that someone would help me gather the pieces. This permission to fall apart, to be messy, angry, confused, and devastated is revolutionary in communities where emotional containment has been a survival strategy for generations. As Letitia Jackson pointed out in our interview, the expectation that Black women will endure suffering silently isn't just a cultural stereotype, it's a legacy of historical trauma where expressing pain could literally put your life in danger. Breaking this pattern requires intentional community building. It means creating spaces where vulnerability is not just allowed, but honored, where tears are not signs of weakness, but expressions of love, where the full spectrum of grief emotions, from rage to despair to the guilt of occasional joy, can exist without judgment. Karen Eubanks Jackson embodied this approach when she founded Sisters Network Inc. and its Healing Circles initiative. After losing family members, including children, to cancer, Karen noticed how little acknowledgement there was for Black maternal grief in mainstream support resources. The Healing Circles provide something precious, culturally specific spaces where Black women can share their stories without having to translate their experiences or tone down their expressions of pain. Participants report feeling seen for the first time in these gatherings, where facilitators understand both the clinical aspects of grief and its cultural dimensions. One mother who lost her teenage daughter to sickle cell complications described her experience. In the healing circle, I didn't have to explain why I kept my daughter's room exactly as she left it. I didn't have to justify why I still cook her favorite meals on her birthday. Everyone just understood. This understanding, this freedom from explanation, creates the conditions for authentic healing. But community support isn't just about emotional validation, it's also about practical help during a time when even the simplest tasks can feel overwhelming. Letitia Jackson emphasized this practical dimension of support. Grief affects your cognitive function, your memory, your ability to concentrate, your energy levels. Sometimes the most loving thing someone can do is mow your lawn or stock your freezer with meals or sit with your other children while you take a shower. This brings me to the third and perhaps most powerful insight from my conversation with Letitia. Your story has power. When you've lost a child, silence can feel safer. Talking about your loss means making it real again and again. It means risking awkward responses or hurtful platitudes. It means watching people squirm with discomfort. But silence also isolates. It perpetuates the myth that child loss is rare or unspeakable. It leaves other grieving parents feeling alone in their pain. Tasha Hunter discovered this when she began speaking publicly about her son's death. The first time I shared my story at a community meeting, she recalled, 3 women approached me afterward. Each one whispered the same thing: I lost my child too, but I've never told anyone how I really feel. By breaking her silence, Tasha created permission for others to break theirs. This ripple effect is what Letitia Jackson calls grief advocacy, using your story not just for personal healing, but for community transformation. It's about challenging the cultural silence around child loss, about demanding better support systems, about changing how we talk about grief, especially in communities where stoicism has been valorized at the expense of emotional health. The Sisters Network's healing circles have expanded nationally, influencing hospital policies to require culturally relevant grief resources during pediatric palliative care. The Tasha Hunter Foundation successfully lobbied Chicago officials to increase funding for mental health services in underserved areas. The Loveland Foundation has raised over $1 million for therapy services through grassroots campaigns. These achievements didn't happen because these women kept their grief private. They happened because they transformed their pain into purpose. As Letitia Jackson so powerfully stated in our interview, your story may be the light that helps someone else find their way through the darkness. This doesn't mean you must become a public speaker or start a foundation. Advocacy can be as simple as being honest when someone asks how you're doing. It can be joining a support group and sharing your experience. It can be writing about your child so their memory lives on. The key is breaking the silence in whatever way feels right for you. So I stand here today with an urgent call to action. We must revolutionize how we approach grief in our society, starting now, starting with us. If you've lost a child, I challenge you to find one safe person to share your true feelings with this week. Not the sanitized version, the real, raw truth. If you know someone who's lost a child, I challenge you to reach out, not with advice, but with presence. Say their child's name, ask to see pictures, listen without trying to fix. And for all of us, I challenge us to build communities where grief doesn't have to wear a mask, where how are you can be answered honestly, where we recognize that healing isn't about moving on. It's about moving forward while carrying our loved ones with us. Because grief that's witnessed becomes grief that can heal. Pain that's shared becomes pain that can transform, and stories that are told become bridges that connect us across the deepest chasms of human experience. Your grief doesn't need to follow anyone else's rules, but it does need witnesses. It deserves witnesses. And sometimes in our most broken moments, we discover that our deepest pain can become our most powerful gift to others. That is Letitia Jackson's legacy, and it can be yours too. Thank you